This is going to be a retooled offensive line. Osiris Torrance going to the NFL, Garage as well. Then the 2 surprise transfers who would be starting this spring, and Ethan White and Michael Tarquin both transferring to USC. So we'll get our first look at this retooled offensive line in the coming days. Kingsley Aguakin returns at center, Austin Barber as well, likely at left tackle. Now we'll get to see new transfers. Micah Mazuka, Damian George, Keonta Goodwin insert themselves as well this spring. Mazuka looks to be anchoring that left guard spot. In the spring will be mostly used to figure out the right side of this offensive line first and foremost. George played a lot of tackle for Alabama, but could factor into right tackle, right guard in Gainesville. But if guard, he'd be in a battle with probably Richard Leonard, who saw time towards the end of last season and played well. Throw in Jalen Farmer as well into that mix. It's a young player that the staff really likes along the offensive line. I think you have some quality options there at right guard. And then right tackle, I think, you throw George's name back in. He may get that first crack there. But you also brought in another high-profile transfer from Kentucky, Keonta Goodwin. So George couldn't keep the job at Bama. Goodwin may need more body transformation before he's ready to compete and have some significant playing time along the offensive line. How quickly can he, acclimate his body may factor into ultimately how much time he gets this fall. But we need to see what he can do this spring. Go learn in this offense. Go play in this offense. So when you go take that body transformation this summer, you're ready for fall camp mentally and physically. So that's where I'm really looking at Goodwin's progress mentally in this offense. I don't think he'll be ready physically just yet, just getting there in Gainesville. He even admitted himself, one reason he chose the Gators was to get his body in shape. He was really impressed with what they did with Desmond Watson along the defensive line. He wants to do the same thing along the offensive line. So I'm eager to see, how those transfers fit in and how they fit there on the right side of that offensive line.
Yeah, I think Goodwin is the key. I mean, you have Cam Waits, who I think we all expected probably to shift out to a tackle position who ruptures his Achilles, so he's out for the year. And Goodwin, then, if he can come in and lock down one of those tackle spots, it allows you to do so much, right? If you can bring George and Mazuka into the guards along with Egwekin, well, now you've got 3 guys in the center of your offensive line who all have significant experience. George at Alabama, Mazuka really was the second best guard in the country behind Osiris Torrance. And then Egwekin has been a solid center now for 2 or 3 years. And so you got a lot of experience for guys who, quite honestly, Egwekin was the captain essentially of an offensive line that's been great in the running game the last couple of years. Mazuka is going to come in, plug and play. George, if he's on the inside, but that only works if you've got Austin Barber and Goodwin on the outside. And that's really where the Waits injury hurts, is that Waits was sort of that 6th guy last year who came in when Osiris Torrance didn't play in the bowl game, comes in at guard, struggled a little bit, but still he was that 6th guy that really, maybe even the 7th guy behind Barber, because Barber came in for Tarquin. When Napier talked in the fall about being comfortable 7, 8, 9 guys on the offensive line, Waits was a big part of that. You get all the departures on the offensive line, and now you're kind of down to 5, right? You're sitting there trying to figure out who are those 5. And so if Goodwin can step up and be a significant starter this year, well, then that places you in a position where you're at least at 6. And you'd really like to get to 7 or 8, but if you can get to 6 where you can sustain an injury and still be okay, I think that's where you want to be. So I sort of look at this and say, I'm okay with George. I'm okay with Mazuka in terms of what they're going to bring. The question is, if George is out at tackle, well, you've now got a bunch of young guys competing for another guard spot, and we just don't know anything about those guys. And continuity is important on the offensive line. Florida's certainly given that up. And so talent I think you need talent at that position then to make up for it. And Goodwin is sort of the most talented out of anybody at this point.
Hey, Nick, before you jump in, it may be a little bit of recency bias with those transfers there, but I brought their names up and not to gloss over them, but Richard Leonard, Jalen Farmer, I expect those guys to be heavy in the rotation this spring and fighting for starting roles.
I think there will be several names that you're going to see bounce around here. I mean, there's a lot of good pieces for development here. That's what I like about what they build. It's, Will reference it. Will, do you do it about it every other episode at least? We have to get a Bill Sykes reference in, right? Bill Sykes, the offensive line article he wrote, which was awesome, by the way. Love the article. But, the numbers are getting there with this offensive line, what Sykes was talking about last year in that article on Read and Reaction, if you haven't checked it out. But I like I like what they did in the transfer portal for sure. I'm a big fan. I like the Mazuka tape when I was watching Mazuka. That guy looks like he's going to come in and plug and play right away. You heard a lot of good things about Kearney out at Orange Park. Really liked what I saw out of Austin Barber last year. So what I like about this group, I think there's a big enough group that there is going to be a steady presence here with a good running game like we saw last year. I don't think there's going to be a big drop off in the running game. Do I know the exact 5 pieces or what order we're going to? No, I have no idea. A lot to develop here, a lot to break down here. You're certainly right about Richie Leonard, by the way. Leonard comes in, a lot of experience now after a few years in the system here. But this is what Billy Napier wants to do. He wants to run the ball. He wants this offensive line's huge too. Like these guys he's brought in, he's absolutely, the size is incredible that he's brought in. And I expect this to be a very strong unit. Might not have the superstar power that we had like with Osiris Torrance last year, but I think across the board, I think it's going to be a pretty steady unit again this year for the 2023 Gators. Feel good about it.
Yeah, I think between the transfers and, Farmer and Leonard there, I mean, Will brought that number up. I mean, there's 8 guys probably right there. I think the staff probably feels comfortable with going into spring practice starting this weekend. So good thing for the Gators. And Nick, like you said, the numbers are there. I think there is some depth there, and I'm not so sure the ceiling will be as high with this offensive line, but I don't expect a major step back either as far as running the ball goes. Especially with those running backs, I think helping those guys out just a bit as well. I don't see. And that's not to take anything away from Osiris Torrance. That's why I say I'm not sure. So I see the ceiling is high, but maybe a little more consistency all across the board for this offensive line going into Billy Napier's second year.
Want more Gators Breakdown? Join Gators Breakdown Plus. Starting at $3 a month. Get access to unique episodes, plus a blog, chat room, giveaways, shout-outs, and more. Gators Breakdown Plus is furthering the interaction with fans and listeners like you. Head to gatorsbreakdown.supportingcast.fm to join Gators Breakdown Plus today.